Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew,
And I'm Rachel.
and we are Picture the Scene podcast, a podcast aiming to put you, the listener, at the scene of the crime. Now, a few days ago, it was apparently, according to the internet, and who doesn't believe the internet, Rachel, the most depressing day of the year. But, we survived, and so we're here to bring some mayhem and crime to everyone, aren't we?
Yeah, I actually saw something that was like, since when do we celebrate Blue Monday? And I do agree in a sense that, like, I saw people saying Happy Blue Monday, and I'm like, okay, that's a bit strange. However, what I would also say as well is the company that we work for did some really lovely gestures, or at least they did in the location I work. And there was this lovely little like well-being box and lots of lovely like gestures throughout the day, cupcakes and lovely things to like little messages around the business. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that we should fully embrace it, but also it's nice that it's recognized as, because let's be honest, like January is 3,562 days long, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, no, I saw that they were doing that in your location. I was slightly jealous because we got absolutely nothing. But yeah, it was nice of them to do somewhere.
I'm sorry, Andy.
I'm sure you're not, but let's crack
Consistency
on.
is not key here.
No, I also just want to give a massive thanks to Annette for stepping in last time. But Rach, you're now back, and how have you been?
Yes, Annette, you did a fabulous job. I was a little bit worried about my role being available and to come back to. No, I had a lovely Christmas break, thank you. And kids got bugs, family were always round at the house, but it was lovely and tiring, and I was very grateful for normality to resume.
That's
How about
good.
you?
Yeah, no, it was good. I was sick for a while over Christmas, and Nikki, my wife, went home for 3 weeks, so she's back now, which is great. But yeah, no, it was nice and quiet. It was okay, enjoyable.
And welcome home, Nikki.
I tell you what else is enjoyable, Rach. That's a good little segue. Thank you for asking me that. I do enjoy being back. Now, we have lost a fair amount of listeners while we were gone, which is understandable because we also moved platforms, and a lot of our listeners was on the old platform. But it doesn't matter, does it, Rach? Because we're happy to do this, aren't we?
We are so happy, and it's not about the listeners, is it? It's not about anything but us coming together and enjoying each
Yes.
other's company and sharing a bit of true crime knowledge.
Yes. Well, it is about the listeners, just not about the listener numbers.
Sorry.
Let's
I'm there trying to make you feel better
yes.
and segueing, massively offending those that are listening. I'm so sorry. It is about you. It's also about Andy, and it's also about us.
And I do just want to give a shout out. I am everyone in a very nerdy group for middle-aged people about fantasy football, a little community of men and women who love fantasy football, who probably are too old to be enjoying it. And
Never too old.
And one of the chaps in there is called Steve, and he sadly lives in Stoke, but we won't hold that against him. But he has been binging us, and he absolutely loves our podcast. And yeah, he always comments on either me or you or both of us. And yeah, he's a big fan. So hello, Steve.
Well, Steve, can I just say I love Stoke. It's right next door to Alton Towers. Great little hub. You've got a great football ground too.
Well, he hates Stoke. He is an Everton fan.
No, in that
Yeah,
case,
so
Steve.
go away. No, only joking, Steve. We love you. But for the rest of you listening, we're going to get to the content in a moment. If you do want to help us, please do comment, rate, and review wherever you listen. It's a bit of an urban myth that ratings help exposure. They don't impact any algorithms, no matter what other podcasts might tell you. They're just purely for ego, but they also do help in a slight way for people who might be deciding to listen who have already found us and they're looking at reviews to say, shall I listen, shall I not? So that's when it helps, when they're looking at reviews and they see nice ones, if you like us, obviously. So please do leave one if you can.
Yeah, I definitely always try and look at the reviews before I listen to podcasts because I'm a kind of all or nothing person. And like, I'm either all in, fully invested, and like Andy knows, I'm a huge fan of a couple of other true crime podcasts. And yeah, I'm like obsessed. And some of the ratings and recommendations there were definitely what sparked me into becoming like a fan. So We love a rating, and it is lovely also to hear nice comments, reviews, gives us a bit, of an ego boost. Thank you.
We also like constructive criticism as well, because it really helps us grow. So what do you think, Rach? Shall we now just jump straight in?
I can't wait. Yes, please. I don't have any clue what the case is about this week.
No, you don't. And I guess before we do jump straight in, just one little question for you, Rach. Are you ready for some true crime?
Oh, I'm so ready. Let's go. Dive right in.
Before we start, there are points in this episode where I use terms that are racist and are racial slurs. I'm only saying them to inform, and I don't say them in full because otherwise Spotify will cancel us, but they don't represent my own opinion. Obviously, it's just to give you an information of what may or may not have been said.
I really struggle with this because I've just recently watched a documentary which Angie'll tell you, like, I've become slightly obsessed with OJ Simpson and a lot of the trial content, and then the kind of the show that was created, the 10-part episode that was created to dramatize it. Oh my God, the racial slurs and content of both the documentary and the production of the trial were like really hard to listen to because I grew up in an environment where, those words were absolutely not to be spoken. And even they weren't referenced. They've just always been bleeped out. They've always been not kind of spoken or referenced as something else. So yeah, I find it a real, when I do hear pods and people that say things obviously in context, not because they're racist, I struggle to listen. So I'm glad that you're not going to do that.
Yeah, and I also look forward to the episode that you write on OJ then.
Yeah, I think it'll be a beast, but I am looking forward to it. I just feel like I can't believe it happened. I think I buried my head in the sand for the 39 years of my life so far that I just hadn't really thought much about it, but I listened to a pod on it, thought I've got to find out more, and went down the rabbit hole, and it's mad. It's mad. But anyway, back to
It is
your
indeed.
episode.
No, that's fine. So if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like you to sit back, relax, close your eyes, and picture the scene. Today, we're going back to 2009, the 22nd of August to be exact, and we're in Springfield Avenue in Kempston, which is near the town of Bedford. It's southwest of Bedford, and with its population of around 23,000 people, it sits on the River Great Ouse, and most people casually, when they think of the neighbouring town Bedford, they tend to lump with it at the same time. Now, on this day in August 2009, we're focusing in on the early hours of the morning, sometime around 5 a.m. It would still be dark, with the sunrise still just under an hour away, so the day would be threatening to start, but not quite there yet. The temperature was around 9 degrees Celsius, which is around 48 degrees Fahrenheit, with a slight scattering of clouds, with a light to moderate easterly wind blowing. So if you were up and awake that morning at that time, you wouldn't be overly cold, and you'd probably be expecting a nice day ahead to look forward to. We're going to focus in on an unassuming house in Springfield Avenue in Kempston, which is your standard middle-class suburban street in England. Now, the home we're visiting had its occupants wide awake after an eventful night. The owner of the house was a Kim Stupple, who at the time was 49 years old, and she was a mother to at least two children, Cara and Calum Davenport, both of whom will be heavily involved in today's story. Cara, who was 28 years old at the time, and Calum, who was 26, had long since moved out of the family home, and they lived with their respective families. Now, a little after 5 a.m., a car pulled up to Kim's house into her driveway, and the driver was highly agitated. However, Kim and her son Callum were waiting, expecting this man, so they were stood in a driveway/patio area of her house. Now, this man, brandishing a knife, jumped out of his car, but neither Callum or his mum, Kim, had seen the knife, as everything was happening quickly, and it wasn't a long-bladed knife, so it was easy to miss. Now, you see Rachel, the man was a Wall Whitehead, who was a partner of Kim's daughter Cara, and the red mist had definitely descended on him. An argument, well, more of a shouting match, began as soon as he was out of the car with the three of them.
But you said they were expecting him.
Yes.
So they'd had an incident over the phone, the daughter and the partner.
Well, no, there'd been an incident, not over the phone, but yeah, they were expecting him to turn up. The daughter was still at her house. This was Callum and his mum.
Got you, sorry.
But things soon turned physical, Rach, with Worrell approaching Kim and punching her in the stomach. Well, you see, Rach, Callum thought it was a punch, but in reality, he hadn't seen the knife in Worrell's hand.
No.
Yeah, and he in fact had stabbed Kim in the stomach. Now, even though Callum thought it was a punch as opposed to a stabbing, he still immediately jumped to his mum's defence, as you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Whether there's a knife or not, you step in, don't you? Especially, like, I imagine if you're a man and there's a woman being attacked, that's your natural inclination, isn't it? And like, this is 5 a.m. in the morning, so this commotion on their front doorstep, patio, driveway, like, this is gonna alert other people, isn't it? Like, households gonna start waking up and be like, What's that commotion outside?"
It did, yeah, the neighbours heard this, yeah, definitely. So, and it was a Saturday morning, so everyone would have been asleep. But so, yeah, Callum jumped to his mum's defence and he was grappling with Worrell to stop him attacking his mum. So then Worrell turned his attention to Callum, the man he'd originally turned up to see in the first place, and he proceeded to stab him 7 times in both of his legs, and he pierced the main artery in the process. So he only stabbed him in his legs, and he stabbed him 7 times in both of them, piercing an artery. And as you know, arteries, you can die from pierced arteries.
Yeah, oh yeah, the blood loss, like, and it's in minutes as well, like, obviously depending what you have available at the time, but, before the ambulance can get to you. If at this point an ambulance even been called.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. He would be heard saying that he'd make sure that Callum wouldn't play football again, and Callum would fall to the floor, drifting in and out of consciousness, while his mum, Kim, by this time, despite the wound in her stomach, would be hysterical and screaming, as you'd expect, wouldn't you?
Oh my god, yeah. And, like, the intent of, like, "I'm gonna stab you in the legs," like, the amount of damage that a knife can do, not only take away your ability to walk, but also could kill as well. I mean, I'm guessing at this stage, both Callum and his mum are at risk of dying because, a knife to the stomach as well can be lethal, like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
So how do you think all of this started? And what, Rachel, do you think Warren meant by when he said you wouldn't play football again? Do you have any ideas?
I'm just gonna throw out that I feel like this could be, like, drug-induced rage or jealousy. If he's wired when he turns up, they're expecting him. Have him and Callum's sister, his girlfriend, got high and thought, like, "I'm sick of them, like, judging us. Let's go and teach them a lesson." I don't know. I've not heard the case before, though, so I'm keen to find out.
But you see, Callum was actually a Premiership footballer at the time he was attacked.
Shit.
He was a West Ham player then, but he started his career at Coventry when they were in the Premiership before moving to Tottenham, which is Spurs for the people who are football fans. He moved to Tottenham for £1.3 million.
Wow.
Then later, after a few loan spells, that's when he moved to West Ham for £3 million.
So a decent player, right?
Yeah,
Like,
'cause that was
playing
well,
every weekend.
yeah, that wasn't a bad. I think he was actually injured at the time of this attack, but yeah, that wasn't a bad price at that time because
No.
we're talking 16 years ago.
Oh my god, this is awful, like, so definitely jealousy, right?
And well, that's why he said, "I'm going to make sure you don't play football again," and that's why he targeted his legs
Wow.
because he was a footballer. But to find out what happened, we have to go to the day before, which is a Friday. Callum had been enjoying a day golfing with his father, and they were also drinking that day, with Callum drinking around 8 pints, according to reports. When they had finished their round of golf and time in the clubhouse, they wanted to, and so did, visit Callum's sister, Cara, who was pregnant at the time. Now, they both had concerns about her pregnancy. Not concerns about her and her baby's health, more how she would be able to support a second child, given she had no job, partner who could support her.
Oh dear.
Her previous son, Callum Jr., was 4 years old.
Oh, she called him after her brother.
He was 4 years old, and his biological father was serving life for armed robbery. He had never been involved in his son's life, and prior to his capture and imprisonment, He had been living a life of luxury in the Caribbean on the proceeds from many brutal armed robbery raids that he had committed. So Cara was 7 weeks pregnant at the time with Wolf's child. Callum already helped his sister out by paying for her son's clothes, his holidays, and also the rent on her house. Now, I'm giving an educated guess here, but I assume that as we know they went to her house to tell her that they didn't think she could afford a new baby. I'm assuming that they probably didn't want her to keep it, which is an
Oh.
obvious which is obviously a very emotive subject to bring up at any time, let alone if you already drank 8 pints and then you turn up in the early hours of the morning to talk about your sister not being able to afford her next child. I could
Yeah,
be
there's a
wrong.
time and a place for those kind of conversations, and you definitely need to pick when those kind of things are spoken about because they're like you say, they're emotive enough, but add in so many different factors and the fact that that's your own dad and brother telling you that. Like it's one thing when it's your best friend or, your work colleague that you might entrust with lots of like private information, but to come from your own flesh and blood,
Yeah,
that must have
definitely.
been really hard.
So off Callum and his dad Curtis went to her house on Collie Road. And when they arrived, everything was initially civil. She welcomed them in, she offered them a cup of tea, which is very British, might I add, but she offered them a cup of tea. And bearing in mind, we're now at some point between 11 p.m. and midnight on the 21st, and you're drunk or certainly alcohol affected brother and father turn up, offering them a cup of tea, I think was quite a nice thing to do, don't you?
Yeah, and I also think, like, she wouldn't have been expecting what was to come, right? So that
No.
is, like, as you typically said, a very British thing to do. "Come in, do you want me to put the kettle on?" Like, it's just kind of hardwired in you, isn't it? Even if they are drunk, cup of tea might help sober them up, but I can imagine there's also I mean, I don't know what kind of relationship she has with her dad and brother, but there's also an element of what's it, 10 o'clock at night at this point?
Between 11 and 12.
Between 11 and 12, like, "Why are you here? Should I be concerned?" And then to get on to the subject of, "Oh, hang on, you're here with your agenda," like, that's I can't even begin to imagine.
So during that conversation, they learned that she was bleeding due to a complication with the pregnancy, and Callum did ask if she was okay, but then the mood would soon switch. Their dad, Curtis, said, "Are you sure this is what you want? This is it," referring to the pregnancy, and then started questioning the financial viability of another child.
Oh my god. And does Callum's dad live at home with Callum's mum
No,
and Cara's mum?
they are split up, which is
So
why
why
she has a
wasn't
different
Callum's
surname.
dad targeted? If he's the one to come out, like, with the first blow, like
Well, we'll get to that, but
Right, okay, sorry.
that's okay. Now, so allegedly, then after he said that, Cara would claim that their dad used racial slurs against her. And as I said earlier, I won't say it, but we all know what the N word is. He
Yeah.
allegedly said that she was an N word whore and an N word meat, referring to the father of her first child and also the ethnicity of her current partner.
Oh my god. And then to hear that as well coming from your own dad.
Yes. Cara also claimed Callum said that she didn't need his help anymore in relation to financial help, and it was at this point Cara asked him to leave, but they didn't initially leave.
Oh my god. Like, I'm getting stressed out at this now because, like, she's getting verbally attacked and now she just wants them out of her house and they won't go, like, what do you do?
Yeah. So Cara then went for Curtis, the dad, hitting him in the face, and he tried to restrain her. Well, Callum tried to restrain her. So she then hit Callum in the mouth, so he jumped on her, and she was on the stairs at this point. And in order to pin her down, he jumped in her, so in order to pin her down and to calm her down so she'd stop hitting them. So in the struggle of him pinning her down, he hit her in the eye accidentally, not intentionally, with his elbow, causing it to be bruised, and it gave her a black eye and her face to be bruised. Now, because this was quite noisy, the neighbours called the police, worried that someone was at risk of injury or harm. And when the police turned up, Cara showed them her black eye and alleged that Callum assaulted her. It was at this point that the police told Callum and his dad, Curtis, to leave the house. And Curtis went to his own home, and Callum went on to his mum, Kim's home. And by this time, it was now between 1 a.m. and 1:30 a.m.
So the police didn't arrest either of them for
No, because Callum was claiming that it happened accidentally. Cara was saying that it was intentionally, and so initially they just to diffuse the situation, they sent them home. It doesn't
Okay.
mean that that was the end of the matter, but they sent them home just to stop the arguments between them.
Got you.
So the distance between Kara's house and their mum's house, their mum Kim's house, was about 3 miles. Now, Kara's boyfriend, Worrell, who I mentioned earlier, wasn't home when any of this happened. He was out drinking in Bedford, and he was still out at the time. So after her brother and father had left, Cara videophoned him and told him that she'd been assaulted, pointed to a black eye and bruised face as proof. Now, CCTV footage would show him arriving home and calmly pacing in the lounge or sitting room, depending on what you call it, while eating a banana.
And the CCTV footage, is that from her? Did she have that in her home, or are the police still here?
That was the police. That was on the body cam footage.
Body cam, yeah.
He would also say, while pacing and eating his banana, and I'm quoting here, "That's it. He's not playing football anymore."
Wow. In front of the police?
Yes. So the footage of him pacing and eating a banana and saying that line was on the police body cam footage. And I actually Googled this, because I thought that's quite early for body cam footage. But it turns out that 2005 was when the police started wearing body cams. So 4 years
Okay.
earlier. I didn't realize it was that early. Um, But yeah, the footage of him pacing, eating his banana, and saying that line was on body cam footage.
I think you've said that sentence about 4 or 5 times in the space
Yeah.
of a minute and a half.
Well, I'll say it again.
It's crucial.
Yes, and him getting the knife out, him getting the knife though, that came out in court because that wasn't on camera. So he had gone to get a knife from the kitchen, but that wasn't caught on camera. That just came out in court.
That
Um,
is brave. The
yeah,
police are in your house.
yeah,
You walk into the kitchen and pick up a knife, like,
yeah.
that's brave, right?
Yeah, I just want to put out there because the police didn't know that he had a knife. Because obviously
No,
they
no.
would have reacted differently to that. To me, now this is purely like conjecture. At least I'm not saying this happened, but to me, that screams some type of drugs. To me,
What,
that's what
that
I was
he
thinking.
was
That he was
help
calm and
yeah.
he went to get a knife and he immediately fought violence. To me, that screams some sort of
And it is easy for us to say that, isn't it? Because we aren't drug takers. But I would wholly agree with you. Like, I've not been around a lot of people that are on drugs, but I've been around a lot of people that have had 8 pints, or no, that's how much your brother had. I imagine Worrell had.
he'd been drinking because he'd been out and this was like 1 a.m. in the morning by the time he
Yeah.
got home.
So say he's had 10 pints, right? You're going to be raging if you come home, your pregnant girlfriend has a black eye from her own brother and has been abused, like, verbally by her own father. Yeah, and he's quite calm, goes and gets a knife, like. Did the police hang around and watch him drive off? No. So he was calm enough again to keep the knife for the next 2-3 hours, let
Well, not
them leave,
no,
and
no,
then get in the car.
they left quite quickly afterwards.
Oh, right, okay.
And he was with his cousin as well. But yeah, so but as you said, yeah, after the police left, Wall actually phoned Callum and asked him where he was. To which Callum told him that he was at his mum's house, which with hindsight was probably a bit of a mistake. Um, which is why,
I'm not sure I would answer the phone if I'd have been Callum.
yeah, which is when Callum said I'm at my mum's house, Wall then said that he was going to come to see him, which is why Callum and his mum were expecting him when he turned up.
Okay.
And Cara would later be quoted as saying, and this is referring to her partner Worrell, he got back in the car with my cousin and drove off. And I had no idea where he was going. Sorry, it was her cousin, not his cousin he was with.
Okay. So, wow. So the cousin of Callum. And what do you reckon the cousin knows at this stage that Worrell's got a knife?
I don't know. You'd assume so, but you don't know because he got in the car with him. So you'd assume so, but I honestly don't know because Cara said that she didn't know he had a knife.
That's the scary thing, isn't it? Like, the people that enable the people that are violent
Yeah.
equally as culpable.
Yeah, definitely. And it was implied later that this calm manner in which he was pacing and talking showed premeditation of the attack on Kim and Caleb rather than spontaneous rage, as I think you indicated anyway.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe Worrell was a ticking time bomb, like, waiting to lash out, because I imagine that the behaviour from the brother and the father haven't been particularly favourable to him. If when they're drunk, they say all these things to his girlfriend, their sister and daughter. He's probably got a bit of pent-up anger towards them as well, maybe.
Maybe, and if you add on the fact that if she's saying that they're using racial slurs towards her and
Yeah,
him, and also she's saying that she was attacked and she's pregnant with his baby, so yeah, that all adds up, doesn't it?
yeah, and it's I guess in life, right? And if I think about it, it's one thing to get verbally, insulted from someone I don't know, yeah, on a night out or something, or in the street, whatever. Quite another when that person's close to home. And like add to that the racist factor, 10
His
times
racist factor.
worse. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, alleged. 10 times worse. Like, how do you move on from that as well? I don't know whether this happens, but do they all collectively get together for Sunday lunch? I don't know. But if they do, how does he sit opposite her brother who has said these awful things? Like horrible things. Oh,
So now we get to the time of the attack, right? Which we've gone over. So I'm not going to go over it again, basically, is what I meant. But I left us with when Callum had just been stabbed 7 times in both legs, severing an artery in one of them. Now he would drop to the floor and drift in and out of consciousness and would eventually lose over 50% of his body's blood due to the injuries, and he'd lose it at the scene before he even got to the hospital.
wow.
Now, an ambulance and police arrived, with Callum being rushed to the hospital. Now, Callum would require a 4-hour surgery to repair arterial damage, control bleeding, and stabilize his condition. And in that surgery, Callum would be resuscitated multiple times because his heart stopped beating with massive blood transfusion.
And I can't help but think, like, all of the time and energy and effort of those doctors and surgeons and nurses and all that blood and the skills, all because Worrell's just lost it and decided to go on the attack. It just doesn't feel it's wrong on so many levels. It's wrong for Callum, but it's wrong for the fact that the NHS have to pick up the pieces and, and the fact that the recovery that Callum's got ahead of him, if he pulls through the night, like, it just feels so wrong.
Just pause. After the surgery ended, his condition would be classified as serious but stable, with the doctors being unable at the time to say if he would survive or not. Now, Callum didn't die, but he needed a prolonged hospital stay and he was unable to walk initially without assistance. He also required extensive pain management, physiotherapy, and he was in psychological shock due to his near-death experience, which compounded a difficult sorry, which compounded a difficulty in his physical wounds also healing. So he ended up having a 15-inch scar on his leg, with scar tissue being tethered to underlying muscle and nerve structures, which restricted mobility for him. Due to the injury, his leg would have a chronic buildup of fluid that regularly needed draining, and the medical staff told him that they didn't think it would ever heal properly. When you combine that along with the potential nerve damage as well, he would experience loss of sensation, altered sensation, and motor weakness in his legs too. He would also then require a skin graft at a later date because the wound was just not healing properly without it. Now, unfortunately, the skin graft, while needed, it gave Callum extra nerve damage in his legs, which could not be avoided. So he would spend 18 months in total in intensive rehabilitation. Now, during this 18-month period, his mum, unable to cope with everything that happened, also attempted suicide, but luckily was not successful. So I want to come back to Callum and his recovery, but let's just focus on the criminal side of things again, if you don't mind. So Worrell would be arrested. Well, Worrell and his cousin would be Worrell
Callum's.
and Callum's cousin would be arrested and charged with GBH with intent. Now, Callum's cousin it wouldn't go to trial, but Wall would be charged and it would go to trial. And the prosecution's argument that it was GBH with intent because the GBH came from the obvious injuries and the intent bit was because of his calm manner and that it wasn't instinctive reaction. Plus, they said that because the situation had been de-escalated by the police at making Callum and Curtis leave, self-defense wasn't a viable defense.
No, and surely intent, they've gotten 4 hours after the incident, they've gotten in the car and driven 3 miles. That's intentional. That's not,
Yeah.
you're not in a bar, you don't find some broken glass, turn around and slash somebody. Like, that's react, right? Intent, there's a bit of pre-planning, and all that planning can happen within those hours, like that downtime. I just can't believe it. Yeah, the audacity of him having thinking he has a case to plead not guilty to that.
Well, I'll get to that, but the thing is, I think he left his house about 2 a.m. So they don't actually know what happened. It was only 3 miles, but they don't know what happened in those like almost 3 hours of
Okay.
him leaving and turning up. So, and it would never know what happened. So something happened. So that also shows you that it wasn't instinctive because they obviously went somewhere and did something, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, under English criminal law, there are critical legal distinctions between Section 18 GBH with intent and Section 20 GBH without intent, and also attempted murder. Distinctions that explain why Wall Whitehurst was convicted of the former and not the latter. So yeah, sorry, I've let it slip there. He actually pleaded guilty to GBH with intent.
Okay.
So there wasn't actually, it wasn't immediately that he pled guilty. I believe it was just before the trial started. But
Okay.
yeah, so that's why. So yeah, he didn't actually plead not guilty. But that's why. So that's why he was convicted of Section 18. Well, the distinctions which I'm going to come to, which is why it was Section 18 with GBH with intent and not Section 20 GBH without intent. So just to go over them, because, and that made me realize last week that sometimes I just assume that our listeners know what I'm talking about. So, Section 20 GBH, so that's causing grievous bodily harm without intent, is the least serious. It carries a maximum sentence of 5 years imprisonment, and it implies when a person causes really serious harm through reckless behavior without specifically intending that serious harm to result. For example, punches someone once, who then falls and fractures their skull. The injury is severe, but the defendant may not have intended such catastrophic harm. So that makes sense, do you think, mate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Section 18 GPH with intent, which is wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, is substantially more serious. It carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. This offence requires that the prosecution prove both that really serious harm was caused and that the defendant intended to cause such harm. Now, evidence of intent typically include the deliberate choice of weapon, such as a knife, evidence of planning or premeditation, such as saying, I am going to end his football, repeated or sustained attacks, and the offender's own statements indicating malice aforethought. Now, Wall Whitehurst was convicted under Section 18, having deliberately selected a kitchen knife, phoned his target with clear intent to confront him, and inflicted multiple stab wounds to both legs and the abdomen of two separate victims. So, sentencing guidelines for Section 18 typically range from 3 to 16 years. It can be maximum life, but it's typically between 3 and 16 years, depending on the culpability and harm caused. And attempted murder, because some people might be going, well, why is this not attempted murder? Because he almost died. So attempted murder, by contrast, is defined under Section 1 of the Criminal Attempts Act 1981, and it requires proof that the defendant intended to kill the victim. Critically, this is a higher threshold than GBH with intent, which only requires intention to cause really serious harm, not death. Now, attempted murder carries a penalty of 3 to 40 years imprisonment, reflecting its extreme severity. Now, to secure attempted murder convictions, the prosecution must demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt that Whitehurst's specific purpose was to kill Callum and or his mother, not merely to seriously injure them. So, in Whitehurst's case, several factors likely precluded an attempted murder charge. First, while the knife wounds were life-threatening and Callum lost over 50% of his blood volume, requiring resuscitation, neither victim died. The location and depth of the stab wounds, while devastating, did not strike vital organs like the heart, lungs, or major cerebral vessels with certainty of lethality. And second, the method used, a small kitchen knife, multiple stab wounds to the legs rather than torso or head, is inconsistent with a determination to kill. Killer would typically target the heart, throat, or head with greater force or precision. And third, no explicit evidence exists of Wall's stating an intention to kill. His words were, "He ain't never gonna play football again," which, whilst menacing, indicates an intent to maim or permanently disable, not to murder. And fourthly, he fled the attack rather than ensuring death or continuing the assault. Again, inconsistent with a killer's intent. So finally, the prosecutorial decision to charge GBH with intent rather than attempted murder. That reflects the Crown Prosecution Service's assessment that the evidence more robustly supports the former charge, intention to cause serious harm, rather than the latter, intention to kill.
What I would say, and that's really useful information, but what I would say in this particular case is you haven't taken his life away, but you've taken everything that his life revolves around and stands for. From the mother's perspective, and I get it, right? The court needs to be factual, not emotive, and not be led by the emotions. But from the mother's perspective, at times she felt like she lost everything, which is why she felt so hopeless and tried to do what she tried to do. And you would argue that at moments during both Callum and his mum's recovery, there were probably moments where they wished they would have
Yeah,
passed
I
away.
I agree completely, and you also don't forget, like, if you're a football parent, mum or dad, that's your life. You invest into that kid becoming a professional footballer, and she also had to live with the fact that her son's career had possibly gone. So, but in essence, so I agree with you. But in essence, the law recognises that one may intend to cause really serious harm or life-altering injury without intending death. So,
Yeah.
Wall's actions deliberate. Weapon-armed, premeditated confrontation resulting in severe but survivable injuries. They unfortunately fit square with Section 18 GBH with intent, making that charge both legally sound and proportionate to his culpability, which in reality, he probably got really good legal advice and got told, listen, you're not going to be found not guilty of this. Like, plead guilty for a lesser sentence.
Yeah, and also, like, the court's gonna go after what they're most likely to get a conviction for, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, taking him through the courts for a potential murder charge is just not, even if there was, like, a grey area, what's more likely, getting a conviction for this or a potential grey area murder case that gets thrown out, and it's not worth it, is it?
Even if Callum would have died, I highly suspect that this would have been a manslaughter charge, not a murder charge.
Yeah,
But
my goodness.
But whoa, like I said earlier, he would plead guilty to this, and he received 6 years in prison as a result.
That's all.
But when you say that's all, Rachel, he would appeal that sentence. Obviously, he's not going to appeal the fact that he was in prison because he pled guilty, but he would appeal the length of the sentence.
I
And
can't
on
believe he had
appeal,
any
yeah,
right to appeal that length.
well, he did. There's no harm in trying, is there? Sadly. But on appeal, his length would be reduced from 6 years to 4.5 years.
Why?
It never actually said, nothing ever got reported as to
Wow.
why, just that it got reduced from 6 to 4.5 years.
Wow.
It's worth also noting that he was also pled guilty to ABH against Kim, possession of a bladed article, and driving while disqualified.
Wow. And
So
drunk.
yeah, well they didn't arrest him straight away, so they couldn't prove he was drunk. But yeah.
This is absolutely mad.
But it wasn't over there because there would be another trial, Rach. Callum would also be charged with ABH, actual bodily harm, against his sister Cara, because she alleged that he headbutted her several times, which caused her injuries. And he would go on trial for this, and he would plead not guilty.
Wow. So he, during his recovery, his 18-month intensive recovery, his sister put charges through the CPS towards him
Yeah.
from that incident that night.
He had an interview 10 years later where he said he was still estranged from his sister.
Wow. I mean, she's doubled down on him, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And you would argue, like, if that were me and my brother, the guilt that I would feel that I'd incited the early ending of his career, the potential death, the suicide attempt of her mother, like, to be bold and brash enough to go after him on those charges is pretty mad. And surely the police, if they'd have suspected any sort of headbutting at violence in that moment, they wouldn't have let him go if they'd have. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Poor Callum.
so during the trial at Luton Crown Court, the prosecutors alleged that he headbutted his sister and he bit her cheek after learning that she was pregnant again. The prosecution would argue that he called her a whore and a form of cancer before attacking her. His defense was that the argument was purely about money. If she could afford to bring up 2 kids and her injuries were the result of self-defense, with him trying to restrain her because she attacked their dad and his elbow striking her face in the restraints. Shocked you? Not many things shock you these days, Rach, but
Was the dad a witness to all of this?
yes, but they could argue that the defense could argue that his testimony was prejudiced because
They're
and the
both his
pros
kids.
yeah, so the jury consisted of 6 men and 6 women, and they would deliberate for 8 hours in total before coming back with, do you think guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
They came back with a unanimous not guilty verdict. The jury rejected the prosecution's account and accepted Davenport or Calum's evidence that he was defending his father and that any contact was accidental. According to eyewitness accounts at court, as the foreman delivered a not guilty verdict, Calum stared straight ahead with little initial emotion, and as he walked from the dock, there were loud sighs from the public gallery where his family sat. Outside the courtroom, he broke down in tears and embraced his father Curtis, his mother Kim, and his wife Zoe. His solicitor read a statement on his behalf in which he said, "I am pleased with today's outcome and the jury's decision. This has been a particularly distressing time for my family, and I hope now that we can put this behind us and I can focus on my career." So shall we have a look at his career, Rach?
Yes, yeah, please. Let's
So
end hopefully with some happy news.
So prior to the attack, he was seen as a decent Premiership level defender who had injuries, but with the right form could establish himself as a mid-level term decent defender. After the injury, he would eventually be released by West Ham. He would have trials with clubs like Leeds United, but would eventually move to a non-league team, stating that he was doing so to regain his fitness before going professional again. He would never go professional again. He had a trial game with Leeds, but would say that his leg felt like he was a few seconds behind acting on what he wanted to do. He is quoted as saying, "My mind was ready to tackle, but my leg was 2 seconds behind. After the game, I removed my bib and told Simon Grayson I was finished." In the trial game, he gave away 3 penalties due to miscalculated challenges and slow responses.
Wow.
So it shows you it obviously affected him.
And the thing is, so like when he's coming towards, the press and saying, I'm going to go to a non-league team so I can get my fitness back, like you do what you can to convince yourself that, it's not over. But yeah, he has a moment and ultimately on a public stage as well, even though it's a trial, it's in front of other people. And yeah, he just literally hangs up his bib and, that's me, I'm out. Like, oh God.
He decided to claim on his insurance in the end, because all professional footballers have medical insurance.
I was gonna say as well, like, if he's in a situation with his club where, like, West Ham have let him go, but this has happened to him, is it ever a given that they look after
West Ham
ex-players?
don't, but players get their own insurance,
Okay.
and clubs would also be insured, so they would have got money for him not being able to play a game.
Yeah.
But so a formal medical evaluation was conducted by specialists, likely involving nerve conduction studies and imaging. The results were in his left leg. He had severe nerve damage with going haywire response on testing, suggesting abnormal nerve firing and instability. And his right leg had no response on certain tests, suggesting partial or complete denervation. These findings established that Callum's nerve damage was permanent and incompatible with professional football. Now, the figure never came out, but it was suggested widely that his insurance offered him around £2 million payout, which was reflective of his career and wage, which he accepted rather than pursue further rehabilitation or lower level play.
Yeah.
So
But it's not a lot really, is it? Like,
no, not
it
compared to what he would have earned.
and that's the thing, like, you've got to think about, yes, for you or I, that would be a life-changing sum of money, but they live a certain lifestyle, don't they? And, all of that needs to be taken into account.
So where are we now then? Callum has had various jobs related to coaching and also non-football related jobs, such as reported he's been a delivery driver. He has given extensive interviews in which he states he is still in pain, but he's manageable. He can do things like walk the dog, but he can't do extensive physical activities. And he has also found God since his retirement and become an active Christian and appeared on many Christian podcasts. So what do we think of this one, mate?
Heartbreaking, as per. You've brought a case, a really unnecessary, heartbreaking case to us. Interesting, obviously. It's the purpose of the pod, isn't it? True crime. But really baffles me, moments like this, the way that the brain reacts for different people. And it massively added insult to injury, the situation at the end. And I do not condone how Callum and his father behaved with Cara, the sister, attacking her verbally and allegedly saying what they said. Like, that is awful. But then to put them through, or put her brother through that trial, like, you imagine that there's absolutely no coming back from that. From a family situation, like family ties, absolutely severed.
I don't know if they're still together, but she stuck by him. Like when he was being remanded, she was in court and she was like blowing him kisses and telling him like she'd wait for him. And so yeah, it's sad that such a. I remember buying him all the time when he was at Coventry on Football Manager, and he was a great person to buy because he was young and good. But yeah, it's a shame that It's a shame what happened, and everything was just so avoidable.
Avoidable, that is exactly the word, right?
Yeah.
Unnecessary, like the trigger point of the consequence of the actions earlier in the evening. If you could just go back and change, yeah.
So shall I finish this one up then, mate?
Yeah.
So if it's safe for you to do so, I'd like you to relax, close your eyes, and picture the scene. Families argue, they fall out, and they make up. And today, it should be a warning to us all. Don't argue when you spent a day drinking, because you never know what's going to happen at the end of it. So thank you, everyone. We will be back in roughly 2 weeks' time with another episode for you, and we'd love to hear your feedback. And it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Thanks, guys.